So to introduce myself, so I'm William. I'm living in Paris, so I'm French, as you can hear. I've been doing art, I think, for the past like 7 years, maybe something like that, and I've been doing coding for maybe 12 years. What year is this? 2023. So yeah, 12 years already of coding, and yeah, 7 years of art. So I did study at a school where we learned both. It was a media art school, so it was a good introduction for me to all this world that I didn't know at all. I just wanted to. I'm a very curious person, so just wanted to make stuff with anything I could find. So I did that. I did graduate from there in 2012. Then I went to London to have some experience, mostly in the advertising industry. So I was mostly coding website installation with the Kinect or the Leap Motion, stuff like that, or even apps with like native code, mostly for big companies like Google, Disney, stuff like that. Very corporate stuff. But it gave me a lot of experience, a lot of nights without sleep too. But turned out okay because I could have a lot of experience. So then I went back to Paris 4 years later. So I stayed 4 years in London. I came back and I did the same for 6 years. So we had a bunch of so the specialty of the studio I was working in was like real-time graphics on the web mostly. So that's how I kind of specialize myself in making stuff real time in the browser or anything. And at the same time, I was working, I was doodling, making stuff a lot, maybe every night, maybe on my own side after work, basically, for a lot of time. But nobody was seeing it because I was mostly sharing stuff I was doing for the company, but everything personal, I did hide it until the whole NFT um, wave. And the NFT wave for me, I did get myself involved, I think, in 2021, 22, 21, something like that, I guess. It was very weird for me at first. I didn't know anything, and I still don't know anything about blockchain and stuff. It's crazy. But at some point, like I have a friend, Matt Delory, maybe you know his work. Uh, Explain me how to make a wallet, mint an artwork, and then that's how I get involved into the NFT um, space. Mostly on Tezos first because it was very cheap, so that's how I could like experiment a lot, mint whatever I wanted to mint, without having the fear to spend, I don't know, like thousands, like hundreds of dollars in gas fee or whatever. It was very cool. I was selling pieces for like $10 and I was already amazed because suddenly I was selling my own personal stuff. That was a bit crazy to me. It still is. Um, but then everything quickly escalated. So I did this. So I was mostly on Tezos, on Object, on Ink and Ink first, if you know it, and then on Object, and then FXH came, I think in November, something like, or maybe October, and I decided to try because it was on Tezos basically, and I did a series called Dragons, which gave me a lot of visibility, I guess, in the space. It was my first long form generative art series. And then I think like 6 months, maybe 8 months later, I released another long form generative art series called Anticyclone on Art Blocks. And that's from that point where everything took fire and I wasn't in control anymore. Still isn't. But yeah, that's the story. If you have any question on the story, I'll be happy to answer that. Maybe in the chat, or I don't know if you wanna talk. I don't know, whatever. Where is the chat?
Hi, William.
Hi.
I'm Carolina DeBartolo. I used to work at Art Blocks, and I always thought that your project on Art Blocks was one of the most beautiful things we'd ever released. And
Thank you.
I found it really inspiring too, the way it was so indistinguishable from every item was beautiful. Every single mint was beautiful, but that it was so indistinguishable from something that had been hand drawn. And yeah, I just wondered if you, and I also was, by the way, so impressed with the backstory of the color palettes, that they were all inspired by women in your life and so forth. So I just love the depth of your whole project. So I could go on. And I also love what you released on Tonic as well. In any case, yeah, I just wanted to hear if there was anything more you could say about the idea of making something using these very most, sort of forward, cutting edge, avant-garde technologies, but having those references to something that is made by hand or made by traditional means and methods, because that has also been sort of my inspiration for the work that I've been doing lately using AI. So thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure. I think um, since I started coding, I always saw that as a tool to make the stuff I wanted to make, and not something that could dictate what I was supposed to do. So I like to like break stuff. I like to make stuff I wasn't supposed to do with the medium. And because I like fine art. I like paper. I like tacticality, tangibility. I like to go to the museums and be close to the pieces. I just like to feel. I just feel, I think, more alive maybe when I can touch stuff. And I started to wonder if I can trigger the same feeling of this emotion that you see when you touch paper or when you see like a painting, but without the medium. So I started to want to subtract the medium, I would say, and just get the essence, and what does it mean? How does it translate on the digital format? And for me, I spend a lot of time sketching and in my notebooks. I think a lot, maybe not every morning because I can't now with a kid, but a lot of time is spent on the notebook. So I have way too many papers at my home. But I like to buy papers for some reason, and all kind of different paper, just to touch it, just to feel it and see how paint reacts on this paper and how this reacts on this paper and how colors is being interpreted on this paper. And a lot of stuff is being experimented on the real world. So then I try to translate with code what I felt, what I saw with coding and mathematics formulas and stuff like that. So it took me a lot of time because I had this ambition, I would say, I started doing this kind of stuff in 2016. And I remember it was very shitty looking at first. Like, oh my God, this is very cliche, where it was horrible. But then I continued to develop. I still had my vision, but I didn't have this technical skills yet. So I just kept pushing with my technical skills until I found the middle ground where the technical is not too putting shadows on the visual, and when the visual is standing on the technical. So I start to find this middle ground and try to build up from here. But it's mostly observation, I would say. Like what paper is it like a fractal? It's a lot of question like that. So it's a lot of practice and observation. I think this is the two key elements in what I can be very obsessive too much sometimes.
William, my name's Rebecca, but I go by Numinal in the space. And you're probably going to get a lot of this today, but your work is phenomenal. You're one of my absolute favorite artists in the space, and all of your work. It's so moving, and I connect to it in a way that I don't connect to a lot of work on the screen. So I really just love your work. And I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about the 1935 series. I think I just love every output, and I found that I came to your work after this was minted, so I didn't really get to learn that much about it. So I would just love to hear you talk about how you came to create it, and anything about the series that you'd like to share.
Sure. So this series, so it was with White Moment, and White Moment was happening in Mexico. So I started from there in my research inspiration. I was like in my old favorite artists who went to Mexico, and it happened that Annie and Joseph Olbers went there, and their work started to be very inspired by the Mexican culture. So I started to do a lot of research, like buying all the books I could find, doing all the research on the internet about Annie and Joseph, uh, and how their craft evolved from that point on. And the turning point, their first travel to Mexico was in 1935, and that's where they started to integrate more sub-American culture into their work, and that inspired me. So the key thing I understood from their practice was how to mix things like from the old culture that they found, and with their crafts, what could what's new about, what new thing could they create. That's what my way of thinking about. So in my case, I'm a digital artist. My medium is the code, and if I had to stand on their shoulders, how does it mix all together? So I started to want to make like the sewing or textile, but made of my digital medium, which is like very textured and colorful. And and the question was how, if they were still alive, would they do something like that, or would this differ? And and I and I hope, like I always wonder, all the textile artists, what if they had coding when they were alive, what this would look like. So I try to go on this path. That's what my very way of thinking about this. But usually, yeah, I always try to start with research and what speaks to me, and then I try to sketch and then come with a code. I know a lot of people start with the code and the bugs and say, oh, okay, this is a good bug, and and that's also valid, totally valid. But I prefer much like to start the opposite way, where I start with an experience or an emotion or feeling or whatever. If it's mine or if it's someone else, um, I like to be inspired by things that are not code related. So yeah, I like to mix things up basically.
Thank you so much.
Hello, William. My
Hello.
name is Anton. Nice to meet you. And I really love your work. And my personal favorite is dragons. I adore this collection, and I I love how much movement there is in every output, and the colors. And this, even though it's images, I feel them as animation, and it's really amazing. I would really like to know what was your inspiration and how did you come to this amazing artwork. Thank you.
Thank you, first of all. It's very interesting that you say the word dance, because I am a dancer and I like to make things groovy, I would say, like organic. Like, because for me, like dance is like a body language that even without words you can speak. And I like this. I like to translate this with images. You don't need to say anything; just the image can speak. And Dragons was in that kind of thinking. How was it made? I started with a very, very rigid grade structure, and I know I wanted to find something. So from there, I didn't take any. The very first point wasn't research. It was mostly research into my code. What can I invent? And I wanted to make creatures. I knew that. So, with generative art, a lot of generative art basics is grids and structures. And I wanted to start there. And how can I expand and break everything again until I started to find images in what I was producing. So I was inspired by my code that at some point I didn't control anymore. Like, I think I coded this for straight 4 months. At some point, I don't know what line was doing. So I was just going with the vibe. And at some point, because I like to, when I develop an algorithm, I like to open so many doors. Like, so I'm not uh, restrained to something. I like to explore everything I can. So then I can choose which way I'm going. So I did that for like 4 months. And at some point, I saw little doors and windows, and I was like, okay, this window is very interesting because it starts to make what I wanted to do at the beginning. So it inspires me some creatures, some scales, and that's how I started to say, okay, now I'm going with this window. I'm closing everything else, and I'm going to focus on this. And that's when I wanted to make dragons, because the eye is so close at first. I was like, oh, that's funny. It's like it's very looks dangerous, and that from that point on, I was like determined to make dragons. And so I took inspiration and research in the Asian culture. So I went there. I know all the festivals, the carnivals and stuff like that. I searched for a bunch of images for references, and I wanted to abstract them because I didn't. I'm not such a fan for now of figurative art. I much more enjoy making abstract because I like how everyone can have an interpretation. It's very an open art, I find. So I like to make abstract art. So I wanted to take dragons and make them abstract. So I had to find way to. So I started to list, okay, dragons have claws and scales, and they have these very vibrant colors in when you look at the books, the movies like Mulan, stuff like that. So that's how I started to build like creatures. And at the same time, I'm a fan of Pokemon, so I wanted to my creatures to have like a bunch of variety. So okay, maybe some will be old, maybe some will be young, some will burn, and then I try to make little stories in my head. Okay, dragons, where do they fly? In the sky, maybe in the space. I know they didn't exist, but why not? They can fly in space, right? So I started to build environments and just make up a story in my head basically, and display all these stories within traits. And that's how I came with the whole series basically. I just wanted to so everyone could identify to digital creators, they can adapt them. They all have their stories, they're young, they're old. And I like this, in the Asian culture, old doesn't mean useless or bad or has been. It's actually something very good in the Asian culture. So I wanted to push a little more and create some golden dragons. So when they are dying, it's not they don't become ugly. They just become even more beautiful. So yeah, that's the whole thinking behind dragons.
Oh, thank you. It's really cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so I saw someone posted something on the last thing I made with Tonic, Strength of Solitude. So this one was very interesting for me because I wanted to talk about the subject very sad actually, being alone and sad. So that was very inspiration for me. Like I try as an artist to be more and more emotional and to be more fragile and honest. So I wanted to make a series about this kind of emotion that is not always seen as a good emotion. Um, but I wanted to say it exists. The world is turning around, and even with social media, all this data and everything, we can feel alone even in a sea of people. And I wanted to represent this sea of data, people with a huge load of structure. But at the same time, everyone evolves at different time, different movement, different flows. And that's how I started to come with this whole series about solitude. And because now I'm a full-time artist, so I didn't know that being a full-time artist very isolates you from the society. It's very something I didn't expect. So I wanted to talk about that. And that's how I started to the very the basics of the algorithm was those lines that goes across the screen from the edges and go to the other edges. And that would define my worlds because at some point I was even like every day I was taking my kid to the preschool, and as an artist you tend to observe a lot your world around, and was like everyone actually can observe the same thing is that everyone is on their phone making their own everyone has their own bubble around. And it was so sad for me to to realize, just stop in the middle of the street and just look at people. And I was like, oh my God, what is happening? It's crazy when you realize how we don't take the time because we are so alone, but together alone. It's very weird paradox for me. So I wanted to express that in a way with colors and structures, and that's why you have different windows, different flows, and basically crowds that never interact with themselves, but they're still here. There's invisible walls that no one can see, but it's palpable. Um, so yeah, and the huge challenge for me with this series was we wanted to make huge prints, and I never done that yet. Like they are actually bigger than me. So it was very crazy. So I had to came up technically with something even way more advanced than what I was used to do. So yeah. For the question is the line that goes up. Yeah. 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 Everything is made with code. There is nothing in post or in Photoshop. Like my way of thinking of coding is if a software exists in the world that can make something, it means I can code it at some point, and I don't have the formula, but I will look for it, and very in an obsessive way. So I kind of always find what I'm looking for. And with Photoshop, there is always this, this way of doing things. Okay, you can apply a texture, make selection, filters, all this stuff. If Photoshop can do it, I can do it. So that is the way of thinking. Even if it's like in an installed app and I'm the browser with much less resources, but still, I think there is still ways to cheat and find the visual I'm looking for. So I think nothing is impossible. Nothing really is impossible, I think. The only enemy is time. Like how much time do you have to look for this? And this is the right question you have to ask yourself, I think, because time is a very rare resources, right? So you have to be aware of your goals to make the most of it. That's what I try to do every time. Okay, what I want to achieve in this limited period of time, and just go deep into that. But yeah, and then on paper it was basically printed. But I knew it was about to be printed, so I made so many subtleties in the colors, subtle lines like it was undrawn. When you paint, and that's when again my professional practice come into the mix. Like when I paint or draw, nothing is the same everywhere. Your hand is very not accurate. It's not precise. So I always try to apply this concept to my code because that's how I draw and paint. So I try to translate my own human randomness into my code, and that's how I come up with this kind of algorithm. Okay, my race when I'm tired, I'm making a line like like that. So okay, maybe my code if I simulate me being tired, my code should do something like that. So it's always this kind of thinking as well. And yeah, with the sort of solitude being printed in so big, I had to hide very little, tiny, almost invisible details that you can't see on screen, but will reveal themselves only with prints. So that was the very big challenge for me. How can I make something very good looking on screen and on prints? Because usually you have to adjust everything. But I wanted to have something that can live in both worlds. So yeah, it was a huge challenge, but it did work out. So I'm happy. Uh, the question in artists that I'm saying, I think I'm mostly inspired by fine art. Like I went on Monday, maybe last week on a Matisse exhibition. Because I think we have to stand on the shoulders of the old masters, but we have to find our own ways. I think everyone has to find their own voice and yeah, and who are you basically? And I don't like to look too much among my living peers because I don't like to be too much influenced. I like to I like to find answers myself, even if it takes me a lot of time. So I try to not look up too much to other people and just make stuff. I fail a lot. Like I don't show it, but I fail a lot. And usually but I fail maybe 1,000 times, but maybe the 1,001 time, this will be the time I find what I was looking for. So that's a good thing. But then yeah, I'm mainly inspired by how artists are handling the artist life or how they're handling their social media because I can't do this visually actually. So it's much yeah, I'm inspired by other living artists by the stuff they do outside of art because I struggle a lot with this. But art related, I think I mostly draw inspiration from dead artists, fine art artists. This is very interesting because I find that all the painting and the old masters knowledge is like lost because there's not anymore this transmission of knowledge that we had before like masters had students mentoring and they would just give their knowledge. How do you put your brushstroke on the canvas, like oh no, like this or like this? So we lost that. Now we all have like tutorial on YouTube and stuff like that, which is great as a starting point for me. But at some point you have to find your voice. So that's where I cut everything and search. Um, a question about the routine of working. Uh, it's very challenging for me to work because now my child is 2 years old and is exhausting. But I try to have this routine of color mixing almost every day, not every day, but almost, where I just take a bunch of tube of paint and open my little sketchbook and just losing myself into finding colors or patterns or stuff like that, maybe for like 2 hours a day, and the other hours are like coding and being outside. Um, I truly believe not everything happens when you sit down, but when you go to an exhibition, when you see friends, because life is very inspiring, I feel. So I'll try to be inspired by any moments in my life. I try to listen to myself a lot, but yeah, I don't have any routine except for the color mixing, which I try to do every day because I like to color mix for some reason. I like to find colors. Sometimes I just take a book full of colors and I try to match the colors with just the three colors like red, blue and yellow, and just try to match the colors. It's very helpful exercise for me because when I see a digital color, I'm gonna say, okay, maybe this color needs more red, or maybe this color needs more yellow to go to the magenta side, or the color wheel. So I will try to be good at colors, which is very hard subject. So yeah. Um, and maybe part of my routine maybe is I do a lot of outputs a day. I think a day I have like maybe between 50 and 100 outputs a day, every day, on my current algorithm. Just because I like to look for what's in there, what's in the parameter space that I didn't think of. So yeah, that's a good routine to have, to just be regular with looking for something. I like to search. Um, and yeah, and my kid, yeah, it's very challenging to have a kid. I don't know how people do this. It's very challenging. Like the good thing is that I have way less time for social media. I don't know if it's a bad thing or a good thing. I think it's a good thing, but it's taking so much energy that having a kid is like, oh, okay, my kid is having a 2-hour nap. What I'm gonna do? I'm gonna sleep or work, but not on social. It's just work on or sleep. But yeah, it's challenging to have a child. Um, um, which pieces? Let me. Oh, I can see the pieces. Ivan Cassis. I can see the pieces you're talking about. Which series? Which series was it? Oh, okay, this one. This one was made with coding. The frame. Spread the love. Okay. Yeah, this was made with coding, and then I colored by hand everything on my iPad. Sometimes I do it on my iPad. Sometimes I do it in real life and take pictures of it. Depends on. But because it was like a pencil rendering, it was okay for me to do it on the iPad. But sometimes when I do it with Paint, I like to have this texture that is very hard to reproduce with digital. So I just Paint will make my algorithm output every frame. I try to do like 60 to max 120, and then I will just paint everything. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of time, but I just love how it looks because it's a mix of coding, digital, and analog. So it's a perfect match for me. It makes sense for me to do stuff like that, even if it's a lot of time. Yeah. Um, when I failing a lot, usually I will start over. It's hard, but I just like Control A, delete everything. Because at some point when I'm so stuck, I'm so stuck because I can't find outside of my code, outside of the box. Very cliche to say this, but I can't think outside of the box if I'm too much into it. So yeah, delete everything, start over. It will take time, definitely, but you will find new things to explore later every time. Every time I did that, it was the beginning of a new series. So I was like, oh fuck, this is very good, but I can't do this right now because I have this series to finish. But I have that's how I have so many outputs. I think last year I had like something like 3,000 outputs in my folder. Just like in the same, I think I can maybe share my screen on something. Maybe the the 1935 folder. How do I share my screen? Like this? Oh, am I? I have to quit and come back. Discord. Is it okay?
Please come back.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I hope he hasn't run away.
Why not here? Yeah, yeah, I can. Yeah. And where are we? Where am I found? Oh, yeah, please. I'm so lost on Discord. It's crazy. Um, oh, it's here. Okay, cool. Okay, camera. I'm back. Can I share now? Yes. Okay. So if I'm looking for where where the first ones? Yeah, the first one were very different. So this is the last one. Maybe I can show this. No, what's this? I have to download. This is the last one, and the first one was like that. Come on, please download. Oh, why? Yeah, something like very different. Don't want to display. Okay, come on. And then maybe I can show my current thing. Am I allowed to do this?
Sorry, William. We only see Discord screen
Oh,
right now.
oh, well,
Yeah.
that wasn't expected. Okay. Oh yeah, okay. On Mac, but I was screening only the app and not my entire screen. So now you should see. Okay. So this is the 1935. So this was the final kind of output, right? Uh, and the very beginning was like this. So it's kind of crazy when you see the very beginning and the very end. It doesn't match at all. But yeah, it just I know what I was looking for, but I didn't have any starting point. So I always start with the very basics. Why isn't it? It should be bigger. Yeah. So yeah, and then maybe look back. Here it looks like I find the texture. Come on. Oh, yeah, here. So here I started to find the texture I was looking for. So that was the first key I unlocked. I was like, okay, so this is checked. I can go on. What about colors and stuff like that? So I was trying to find. At first, I wanted to find watercolors. So it was something which is very annoying. Very annoying. Something like that. So I stayed in this a lot, I think. I just wanted to push this. I knew it wasn't the end goal, but it was like, okay, this is while I'm on here, let's explore. I'm gonna show you something else. So it's gonna click with what I was saying before. Oh my God. Load, please load. Yeah, something like that. So it was very watery. So I figured, okay, I found water. I found the water. Okay, cool. Now I can just go on. Now I need to make it dry, right? How can I make it dry? So that's how I started to have this kind of outputs here. Something like that. So basically, in my shaders, I started to have some kind of simulation. And in my simulation, I was like, okay, water if it should dry at some point. So I'm gonna put some data into the shaders about the life of the pixel. And at some point it will move. And if it moves too far from its origin, it's dried. So that's how and then I'm gonna color, and then the color gonna change as well. So this is the wet part, but here, and this is the dry part here. Like, okay, if it's dry, it should be like bluish, and if it's dry, if it's wet, it's blue, and if it's dry, it's like cream, gray, white. That's how I started to say, okay, I think I found what I was looking for. That's the question. Yeah, always shaders. I think I have no series without shader. Dragons was mostly JavaScript, like CPU stuff, classic like context.rect fill strokes. And then I still had like a layer of shaders on top. So Dragon is my least shadery series, but then everything after Dragons is pure shaders usually. So yeah, so it was that, so I started to look for colors and variation, something like that. Or like, okay, I think I found paint, but how? So how you can? Yeah, yeah. Shaders. I learned shaders. The book of shaders is very good basis. I didn't have this when I started. I started with making like video games kind of stuff like program learning OpenGL. Yeah, this was a resource I was using a lot, a lot. I think I spent so many hours on this. It's crazy. But yeah, you have like lighting, basic color, lighting, map, materials, a lot of stuff. It's always shaders. And when I teach shaders to my students, I always say, yeah, in 3GS you can say, yeah, new material, red, and you have like a red cube. But in reality, everything is a shader with WebGL. So we have to learn shaders first because this is the very basics. And I think if you start very from the beginning, it's not that hard because yeah, this is like a simple display of color, and I think you can get away pretty quickly with some very basic shaders and then build upon. But this website to learn OpenGL was a crazy resource for me. It doesn't make sense for everything, so you have to choose what you want to learn. But and it's not web, right? It's open, yeah. But everything is very easily translated. Well, for me, I don't use to say. I try to not use the word easy because it's always difficult for someone. But I try to that translating is not something completely new in the web. So it's mostly translating. So yeah, this resource was very helpful for me. Are the cuts code made? The cuts. What are the cuts? The cuts. Yeah, then I started to have something. Then I started to. So I was like, okay, I found the recipe I was looking for, right? So now I'm gonna start the next phase with paint. I have multiple brush strokes, multiple colors. So how does it translate with digital? And that's how I started to have this kind of shapes like rectangles, and each rectangles will inject some different colors on the canvas. And then I have, I think, like 4 different shaders that will simulate between each other to match and mix the colors together. And with with the same logic of each pixel have their own life, so they can dry. So they can dry at a different speed depending on where they are in the screen. So that's where I start to have this kind of brush strokes kind of looking texture. Is because okay, this like on here it's gonna dry faster than here. So if I make everything very subtle variation, it will look more organic. For me, it's all about subtleties. I don't like to be very obvious, like, whoa, I made a nose pattern, amazing. I'm more like, I'm gonna index so many subtleties into it that the whole should look organic. And that's how I usually think about my shaders. So then I quickly move to colors, right? So start to look like this, looking for multiple textures and colors, stuff like that. And then where am I? Then I wanted to have something very bloody. So I think I don't know why I was into blood while making this. I had this idea I'm gonna make blood. So I was looking for the right color, the right viscosity, the right dilution. So yeah, I started just to want to make a red paint that looks like blood. So that was the idea behind this, and it was just it has nothing to do with the final output that I had in mind, but I was just in this state of exploration, all these multiple doors and windows that I want to explore. So I didn't restrain myself in saying, "Oh, this is a bug," I'm throwing it away. I'm like, "Oh, no, I'm gonna dig it and go with it. What's next? What's behind this?" And that's how I have so many outputs in my folders. So this is the output that sold to Sotheby's. And yeah, it was part of this exploration of paint. And even though I wasn't on my final goal of 1935, I knew I was on a key moment of my journey of finding paint. This is the first one. The first one I said, oh, this is what I was looking for in terms of texture. So from there, I'm gonna build on this. And that's how I started then to look for patterns because Annie and Joseph Holberg were very into patterns, were textile artists. But like, okay, how can I make patterns? So with coding, you can make moires, you can make very subtle patterns to give illusions. So basically what computers are good at. So I started starting to do this and start to mix it with what I had before. And honestly, here I lost everything I had before. So I like, it still looks good. So let's go with it. So I had a couple of things like that. And then I started, okay, I need really need to get my diffusion, water stuff back. So I started to look for more stuff like that. Then I had this crazy idea of what if I can sew, make a textile in water, what would look it like. So always this idea of mixing, concepts and ideas. So this is what came up. I think I have oh, I think I have like a video of it. Yeah. So this is a wall. So this is all shaders, and then now I'm gonna dilute it in water. Okay, now stop the water and now resume the textile parts to recover everything that was diluted. So it's like textile, water, textile, and that's how these pieces came. Uh, it was a very fun process to do this. Um, then I was looking for more paint again. I think looking for like a cardboard, kind of stuff. So I went into this. It was very blue. I was very blue for some reason. I like blue. Um, what else? Oh, this is very interesting because I had an exhibition in between, like before 1935. I had an exhibition with Knit London, and I started to show my research with basically this folder. And we're like, oh, we like this. We like what you want to do with 1935, but what if we could do something but this particular pieces like this one? Yeah, I think it's a good one. I can say a good point is to say I save everything I do, like everything I do. Like every time you have a good output, I'm gonna save it. I use GitHub. So I have GitHub. Every time I use GitHub, and basically my GitHub is just numbers that are the images. So I have the whole code, and I can go back to the code and look for the images basically. And that's how I started to develop a parallel series within this folder to make the exhibition happen. And that's how I developed these outputs. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna make it blue. And what does it remind me? And it reminded me when I was at school learning to write. So I wanted to have rows of patterns to make like a letter or basically a writing, but with ink that thinks. And that's how I came to this series compute thinking patterns, um, stuff like that. So it's very watery ink kind of stuff. And I was very happy with this one. So the exhibition was my first exhibition, first of all, so it was kind of special for me. So, and with this kind of output, it was crazy to have them printed in 80 centimeters by 80 centimeters. So that was very good. And and I could pull off all these theories because I was doing this every day. So for me, it was just keeping doing what I was doing, but more with the exhibition mind. So I was like in more creation mind. So okay, I have this series, but I'm gonna shift a bit to make the exhibition first and come back after to make 1935. And that's how I came with this very water ink series, very blue, which is a kind of one of my favorite color. Yeah, this one is very good. It's called Fontaine de Jouvence. It just reminded me youth, basically youth, and how crazy you can be as a young human. Very organic and explosive. So that's how I call this Fontaine de Jouvence. So yeah, this one was very special for me as well. Then I started to be okay, maybe black. Maybe why not black? And I'm like, no, it's cool, but doesn't match my memory of learning to write. So I'm gonna go away from black. And I came back to blue. And I was like, okay, maybe this looks like snow, ice. So what can I do with this kind of stuff? And then I started to look for crazy references, ideas of snow. How does it? I remember I was like on the weather, websites. How snow does, build. So when it comes from the sky, it's water, and then it slowly solidifies. So that's why I wanted to have this solidify effect. So it's like water over here, and then it becomes more and more solid and becomes white and becomes snow. So that was the idea with this. So yeah, that's again like a kind of writing stuff, very inky. But yeah, but let's jump way, and that's how I started. And then the deadline from Bright Moment was coming closer and closer, right? So I'm like, okay, we'll stop looking around now. Focus. Close every doors, close every window that you opened. It's still in GitHub, so if you need to go back, you'll go back later. But now finish, and that's how I started to finish. And so I started to look for the thing that was, I have it, yeah, like I think this one was like 3 months run. So I started to go back to my 3 months old idea, and yeah, started to want to make textile, but with my techniques and my own interpretation of textile. So that's how I started to have more very colorful stuff. But at the end, he didn't make the cut because when I was looking for uh, Annie and Joseph Albers in their textile, there's no much color. Usually it's like one or two colors. So I was very like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna save it for later and gonna go closer to the Albers and go with one or two colors. That's how I started to have some outputs like that. Very like duochromatic, like a lot of pink, yellow, but still I couldn't let down the third color, but I think I had to let it go at some point. So yeah, as we start to have more like what I have in the final rendering, like two colors, very like not it's like ordered but chaos. So I wanted to have like a good amount of both, because generative art is about chaos and order. So I wanted to have like rows of patterns, but at the same time they all mess up together to create something else. So, and that's for me the point of painting. Like I like to get messy with paint, but if I can do it with digital medium, then I can make fine patterns and repetition and stuff like that. So I can take advantage of both medium with the idea of making a textile like Annie or Joseph Albers will do it. So mostly Annie, mostly Joseph was more into painting, but Annie was the main inspiration. Annie Albers, the wife was very amazing. And then yeah, I started to basically develop all my patterns and all my textures, Sometimes it will be more organic, sometimes only one color, sometimes very melting. So yeah, that's how. Then I just finished basically at some point. Yeah, I just kept doing this and finished, and still, and then it's all a matter of not going away from your idea. You will find very good bugs, but you have to stick to your vision and stay there and trust the process because it usually works. It just works, even if I don't see it. I'm very often in this mind of, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, but usually, you know, I don't know, just keep doing it. At some point, it will make sense, and usually it does because if you keep looking for something, you'll find a huge amount of treasures of findings. But if you connect everything you find on your way to your vision and original idea, then you just have more tools in your belt, and then it all makes sense. So while you're finding your little stuff on the ground, you're like, oh, I found this, doesn't make sense, but still keep it in the pocket. And when you come back to your tent, your camp, you're like, oh, so I have all this, and I have to go to this mountain. So now I have the tools actually to go to the mountain. So yeah, that's a process I'm visualizing. I like to climb too, so I like to visualize like that way. And yeah, basically that's how I came to this kind of outputs. But I will go back quickly to those ones. Yeah, those ones. Right, the one I showed here because now, well, where is this? I don't know. This? Yeah, so I had this whole output I knew that I found was very great to paint stuff. So I'm doing something with the LACMA and Encapsulated Labs these days. And I wanted to go back to this because it was very good. So I started to make another Word folder and go back from that point, this particular point in time. So very painterly outputs. And basically kept doing this for a long time, kind of stuff. I just loved everything about this. So it was good for me to be able to actually explore, not to be constrained by my own constraint, actually. But yeah, it was just a pleasure, like little houses here. It was just a pleasure to explore again something I explored in the past. It was so always this concept of drying stuff. Here I was like, okay, what if I make it dry, but when it dries, it crackles. So I'm gonna put like some very hard edges into the drying simulation, so then you can just crackle every part. And that's how I came to this result of cracking, drying. I don't know how to. I don't know how to. I don't know what it is, but it came back. It's fun to do. It's fun to explore, and yeah, that's how I started. Basically, the whole thing with like the LACMA idea is to be connected to one of the outputs. So I started to be like, okay, what in their collection, what in LACMA's collection speaks to me, and that's how I found this piece, if it loads, from Paul Klee. And yeah, that's. I started a long time. So again, so I knew where I was supposed to go, towards Berkeley to be in conversation with him. But I just kept having fun where I was here. So I just kept doing this for a long time. Um, and yeah, just find stuff. So here I was like, okay, this is more like a wall, like plaster or something, plastery. Like, yeah, I like plaster, but you know what? I'm gonna be more like on a canvas or paper. So I started to develop a new shader that I never developed before. But well, go back to my paper I have in my atelier. Come back, okay, take photos of your paper and try to do it with shaders. And that's how I started to come here. So now I have some kind of paper shader on top. Um, so yeah, it was much less on the wall or like a plaster, but much more like paint suddenly, just because of the texture. And that's what I love about this. You don't know how it is made. It's just about what it feels like. If I remove the medium, what the feeling? Does the medium is important, or is the emotion and the feeling you have while seeing the piece is more important? And this is a very strong debate in the art world. Oh, this is made with aquarelle. How to say aquarelle? Oh, I don't know. I don't remember. This is made with acrylics or oil, and people like have debates of which one is better. But I'm like, we don't care about this. It's just what do you feel while you see the piece, right? So I always try to wire the brain and make it with a small tweak. I can turn the brain away. So I like this, you know, capacity of generative art and all what it can do. And then I just kept looking. At some point, I was like, okay, I need colors, right? I'm gonna inject colors, and yeah, I just kept digging to apply multiple layers of paint. Sometimes it's drying, sometimes it's just wet. So when it's wet, it just go deeper into the paper. So my shaders have like some sort of absorption concept. It's not accurate at all because I just came up with these weird formulas. But yeah, as long as it feels like I wanna touch it, for me it's fine. And just keep going. And yeah, just try to go with the flow basically. So yeah, I find some very good stuff, and I started to go, okay, now because this is watercolors, yeah, the word for aquarelle, watercolors. So I'm like, okay, I need watercolors actually in my pieces, so I'm gonna inject watercolors into my composition. That's how I started to have this kind of outputs. And then I was like, okay, that's cool. It's very organic. It's very me actually. But this is very ordered. So how can I again have a conversation with Perfi, with my vision? That's why I started to have something like you know, you know, uh, like this kind of order. Like it's a mess, but ordered. It's like order mess. And yeah, that's how I started to have it. I love this one. It's so subtle. I really love this one. It's one of my favorites. It's crazy the details about this. But yeah, just keep digging stuff. Then we're like, okay, now I can have maybe some order but still on top of it I have some mess. So I like the mess. So I start to have to put again on top my previous mess, but still in a more organic manner. And oh, that one is good. One is good. Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I have 10 minutes, I think, again. Yeah, I have 10 minutes. I think then my kid will start to go crazy. I'm very lazy with social. So I don't post much, but I usually post my whips, my work in progress, much more there than on it. You can talk, people can ask question, and I happily answer everything.